pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ed. Okay, I'd like to ask for the approval of the minutes from our meeting of April 18th.
So moved.
Been moved by Jay, seconded by Joe. Any additions or corrections? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We can close the doors. There are no public comments. Robin?
No comment, no one
Okay.
signed.
All right, Kevin is here. Hi, Kevin. He's going to give us our local labor monitoring report for the month of April.
Yep, good afternoon.
Thank you.
So I have our site visits between the 1st and the 30th of April here, obviously. During this period, we made 82 monthly site visits. We made 8 follow-up visits during this period. Checked with residency with 870 workers. Of those, we had 33 issues of non-compliance. 9 were no proof of residence. 23 were out of area. 1 was an invalid ID. USRA Manitow was a 72.3. As of April 30th, 2023, all monitored sites were in the compliance. We have our inspection. And there was 1 new COMIDA job delivered during this period. That was the University Avenue LLC. Any questions?
Any questions for Kevin?
No?
So thorough, with
All right,
nothing
have-
left
have a
to
great day.
find out about. Thanks a lot,
Thank you.
Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the local labor exemptions report, and that's being delivered to us by Brian. Good afternoon, Brian.
Good afternoon.
Brian.
Okay, we have 5 exemptions today to discuss. So, we'll get right to it. The first one is related to the Mantezi Solar LLC project. And this is an exemption that was submitted on the cost differential criteria. And this was an exemption for the provision and installation of the agricultural fence and the gates at the project site in Sweden. We had local contractors submit bids as well as an out-of-area contractor. The out-of-area contractor was significantly lower in cost. I think it was 80% or so in the cost differential. So we went through that process, and an exemption was awarded to Whitmore Fence out of Dryden, New York.
Brian, maybe something for the governance to consider on policy when there's a project of a delta of 80% local labor to some other firm and company coming into our area. That, to me, and I'm sure to a couple others, that raises a flag at 80% delta in price. Are we bidding the same thing, or the questions as far as is this contractor paying New York State disability workers' comp? I am very concerned of an 80% delta on both these solar projects with the fence and having our local folks at 80% delta. It's something to consider for discussion, Jay, in the future.
No, I agree. 80% is an eye-popping number. Were there just 2 bids?
No, there were
I have on Wolf, I have 4 bids.
4 bids.
Okay.
1 out of
Is
area.
that for the
3 local.
both of the solar projects?
Both of the solar projects. The next
Same
one that I
issue.
was gonna report on is the same
Right.
exact issue, same company awarded, project, same cost differential type of situation.
So there were 4 bids. The out-of-town contractor was 80% below
Thereabouts,
the second highest, and then,
yeah.
just out of curiosity, 2, 3, and 4, which were all local, were they pretty tight?
Yeah, they're right around the same, generally.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes
Yeah,
sense.
they're-
Speaks to.
Well, there's a
Yeah.
delta for the second lowest bidder was $60,000 out of a $67,000 award. So the second bid was 126,000 from the 67, 151 and 141. So, yeah, the one is almost double the awarded bid.
Yeah, something's wrong.
Something's not right.
Something's wrong.
Yeah.
Well, good suggestion. We'll look into that at our next governance committee. We keep giving you all these assignments, Jay.
We're gonna have
And we're-
governance
I got
meetings
plenty of
every
time.
week.
I know.
Brian, just real quick, how did they bid this? Do you know?
Yeah, so it was for the actual, provision of the actual product, all the supplies of the product itself plus labor, and it was by square footage.
Okay. We can take this offline, but that's.
4,832 square foot of the fence, right, and then there was actual gates too, there was 9 gates as well that were part of the bid.
Do you know if there were drawings, like, were there plans that they sent, or was it?
Yeah, there was drawings, I believe, in here, yep.
Okay. All right.
So I guess the question is, the breakdown is, what's labor versus material?
It was both.
So what was the variance? Was the biggest variance within labor, or was the biggest variance with material?
I'd have to do some math, but it was definitely different, in both the materials and the labor. It was obviously higher in the labor than the materials. I don't have the exact percentage.
So I think when you start looking at comparisons, so we're not shooting in the dark, you need to have that broken down, basically a line by line analysis is what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's just an eye-popping delta.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, Norm, to your point, if it was a difference in material on a delta that's going that far, then there's an inferior product being involved there.
That's why, Troy, you have to get,
But that's not to this board. to
yeah,
decide
but
that.
no, but you gotta get the information for you, so you make a decision on what's going on.
Just confirming that there's something wrong.
So going forward, would you then be providing, for the approval and the exemption, providing the information to what, governance or the board, or so that you've got other folks looking at it before we just say, yeah, that's fine, and
All the documentation is included in the portal, for COMIDA, like all of the supporting, bids.
but I mean, you'd have to give us a heads up if you'd, like the board members to actually see
Oh, sure.
the detail.
Yeah, you know what, Ann, I think it's much more, there's a broader issue, which we can get into with governance.
Okay.
Is we just wanna make sure that the local labor is being given a fair shake.
Absolutely,
That
sure.
that the plans are clear, that they're bidding on the same thing.
Yeah.
Cause we've seen certain situations where the plans haven't been clear and our local community is at a disadvantage. So I think that's where the governance committee wants to, or at least I won't speak for the entire committee, but I would wanna make sure that it's an equal playing field.
So
And then if the delta ends up where it does and it's an equal playing field, so be it.
So when Brian sees a red flag,
Yeah.
what happens then? Does that go through governance? What do we do?
I think we need to,
Get a new
yeah,
Develop
yeah.
a
Yeah, we need to
Process.
develop, we need to
Yeah.
develop a process for
Okay,
that.
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
So that's what we'll do
Yeah.
going forward.
Yeah. But, when you see a situation like this, where you see an 80% delta, all the local folks
Right.
are in one,
Something
yeah,
sounds amiss.
something, could be
Yeah.
okay, but it merits at least a
Absolutely.
peeling of a
Mhm.
layer or two.
Right.
Okay, so that was the first two, it was the Nantese
Right.
Solar and the Wolf Solar, same situation for both. Okay. The next one is related to the Gannett Partners One LLC project. And this was an exemption on the no local labor available criteria, and this was for the installation of the gypcrete, cementous floor underlayment on the floors of the site. This is one that we've seen a lot locally here, and there's just no contractors here who do it. And that exemption was given to Henderson Johnson out of Syracuse. Any questions on that one?
Troy, you don't know that it does that locally?
Nobody,
Okay, and the last two are for the Li-Cycle North American Hub. The first one is related to the carpentry work surrounding the concrete. It's the concrete framing. And the local 276 carpenters were at full employment and could not meet the resource needs of the project. So they needed to bring in some other locals, local 276 members who are, they're active members, but they do not live within the 10-county area. So they brought in other members that resided outside of the area, and that was confirmed through the local that they here were at full employment.
Okay,
Questions?
got one more, right?
Okay. And the last one is a similar situation, but this one was related to the steel work. And this one was for folks that they refer to as sheeters. Troy probably knows what that is more than I. But it's a specialization within the iron workers, and Local 33 did not have or could not adequately fill the needs of that project, so they decided they had folks at Local 6 out of Buffalo and Local 60 out of Syracuse that they were gonna pull people from to supplement the workforce there to do that sheeting work. And so I reached out and spoke with Local 33. They confirmed the facts of that, and so we gave an exemption for Local 6 folks and Local 60 out of Syracuse.
Okay, any other questions for Brian?
More of a comment. So here's a perfect example of union local labor securing a project, bringing in out-of-state, out-of-area workers, but when that happens, the wages stay consistent. So each contractor's bidding apples to apples when it comes to labor on a project. So this is kudos, perfect example of how the unions are able to mobilize and get the project done, no hiccups, no burps, stay on schedule. And more importantly, to move forward with project labor agreements. When we run into these labor situations, a PLA and unions involved on all sides helps, and it's proof that it's working at life cycles. So just a good comment on that.
Good
Thanks,
feedback.
Brian.
Any other
Thanks for that,
comments
Troy.
for Brian? All right, thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a good
Brian.
day.
You too.
Next item on the agenda is our financial report, and Greg is not with us today, but he did give us some sort of headlines behind the report, and I think you were given a copy.
Should look like this.
Does everyone have it? Yeah, we just circulated that a few minutes ago. Basically, another, great month. Anna, any headlines that,
Sure.
we don't need to probably go to that level of detail.
I won't
in
read
his notes.
from this, but
But-
I'll pull a couple of high-level insights.
Yeah.
Cash is down 1.05 million from year end. Prepaid expense represents P-TEC funding, now it's the Apex Accelerator. Accounts payable is comprised mainly of monthly recurring bills, the Empower bill. Accrued liabilities primarily covers YAMTAP and Q1 of the 23 county contract. We received payments on 2 existing projects and application fees for 6 projects in April, so that's fee income. $21,000 in interest income in April, bringing total for the year to $31,000. And I can talk more in detail about the Workforce Development Fund when we get to the dashboard at the end of the meeting.
Sure.
Is there any movement on investments and being more diversified, and is there any update to that?
Where are we with Greg and the investments?
Yeah, we're working on getting that, we're not really calling it an RFP, more of a request for quotes, I guess, if you will,
Yeah.
services that we're gonna be sending out to all the banks. That'll be out, we gave ourselves a deadline, we need to kind of get through this meeting,
Yeah.
deadline of getting that done, what's today, Tuesday, by the end of this week, and that'll be out so that we can call finance committee back together at the beginning of June and kind kinda make some movement on that.
Just gonna work with banks and not with investment consultants, larger entities to
That's the plan right now. See what-
Just
we'll
with
see what we
banks.
come back with, yeah.
concerned that each bank's only insured for 250, where if we went to a consultant, we'd have more of an umbrella coverage. Just the thought.
We can float that with Greg, and you're on the finance committee as well, so when we schedule a finance, we'll have that discussion.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, anything else on expense report year-to-date, Anna? Okay. And you have more information in your notes there. All right, let's move forward with our projects. The first project is the DeMarte Companies, Inc. Anna, you want to give us the rundown on that?
Thank you. DeMarte Companies, Inc., DBA Maris Systems designs and builds manufacturing equipment and robotics for the automotive, medical, energy, and consumer markets. DeMarte is renovating an existing 25,000 square foot building in the town of Ogden. The $1.2 million project will allow for continued growth and is projected to create 3 new FTEs over the next 3 years, in addition to the existing 69 FTEs. The applicant is seeking approval of sales tax exemptions only, and the benefit to incentive ratio is 53-1.
And we have Eric DeMarte, who's the president with us today. Welcome. Want to add any color or flavor to the project?
Not particularly. We had a much larger project slated to take place, and I think when COVID hit, the costs rise so substantially that, we could no longer, justify the project. So we pivoted and bought a local facility from Losey's, was consolidating a bunch of buildings. So they had moved out, which opened up an opportunity for us to buy and then retrofit a facility that's right in the same business park we're currently. So
COVID changed a lot of people's plans, unfortunately, but it looks like you're bouncing right back and moving forward. Okay, thank you for that. Any questions from the board on this project? Okay, we did not, public hearing was not required for this project, and I need to ask you a few local labor questions. Are you aware of our local labor policy?
yes,
Do you anticipate any local labor exemptions at this time? And are you aware that any exemptions need to be requested 45 days in advance? Yes, okay. The seeker process is complete, and now I'll ask for a motion for inducement and final resolution approving a sales tax exemption. Moved by Lisa,
I'll second.
seconded by Joe. Any other comments, questions? All right, I'll take a roll call vote. Jay?
Yes.
Norm?
Yes.
Troy?
Yay.
Rhett?
Yay.
Lisa?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
And Ann is a yay. That's unanimous. Congratulations. Good luck to you. Thanks
Good luck.
very much. Okay, all right. Next project is Clear Choice Building NY LLC. And we have Representative Christine Turk with us. Anna, you want to give us the rundown?
Clear Choice Building NY LLC Incorporated, a real estate holding company, is constructing a new 30,000 square foot facility in the town of Greece. This building will house Clear Choice Products, a manufacturer of ear molds for hearing devices, noise protection, and musician in-ear monitors. The retail portion, Clear Choice Hearing and Balance, 21% of the total budget, will also relocate here. The remaining space will be leased out as commercial office space. Clear Choice plans to create 7 new FTEs in addition to its existing 12 FTEs. The $10.8 million project is seeking a real property tax abatement, mortgage recording tax, and sales tax exemption. The benefit to incentive ratio is 9-1.
Thanks, Anna. So, good afternoon, Christine.
Good afternoon.
You want to give us a little more sort of
Sure.
background story behind the project?
Sure.
a
I've been in
big one.
private practice for 15 years, in Greece, right around in the same
park, we've massively outgrown our space. So we went ahead and looked for new space, couldn't find it. So a piece of parcel came up and I bought it. And I'm gonna be moving my practice there. It's a 30,000 square foot building, 2-story, 15 and 15. And on the second floor, I'm gonna put my second business, which is the Clear Choice products.
It's a very competitive business these days. It's just
Extremely.
using all the new technology that's out there.
Exactly.
If you don't sort of hop on that bandwagon quickly, you could sort of get left behind.
Correct. I'm on the bandwagon.
You're on the bandwagon. You're moving
Yes.
quickly. Yeah, that's
Yep,
very, very
absolutely.
impressive.
Thank you.
So, all right, any questions? All right. I will ask you if you, well, first of all, there was a public hearing held on May 11th. Rachel, any comments
No
at that
comments.
meeting? And the local labor questions, I'll ask you. Are you aware of our local labor policy?
Yes.
And are you, or do you anticipate any local labor exemptions at this time? And are you aware that any exemptions need to be requested 45 days in advance?
Yes.
Yes, okay, great. Seeker process is complete. I'll now ask for a motion for inducement and final resolution approving a real property tax abatement, mortgage recording tax, and sales tax exemptions.
I'll motion.
Moved by Joe,
Second.
seconded by Norm. Any other comments, questions on that? All right, I'll take a roll call vote. Jay?
Yes.
Norm?
Yes.
Troy?
Yay.
Rhett?
Yay.
Lisa?
Yay.
Joe?
Yes.
And Ann is unanimous, another unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good luck
Thank you very
with
much.
that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next item is Rock Depot LLC.
Thank you. Rock Depot LLC, a real estate holding company, constructing a new 35,000 square foot facility in the town of Gates. The main tenant will be Ridex Logistics, a new transportation company that specializes in local deliveries, cross-docking, and temporary storage of dry goods. Rock Depot LLC plans to create 3 new FTEs. The $3.9 million project is seeking a real property tax abatement, mortgage recording tax, and sales tax exemption. The benefit to incentive ratio is 9 to 1.
Okay, thanks, Sonia. And you must be Roman.
I am Roman.
I'm not even going to try to pronounce your last name, but I would like to hear you tell us what the pronunciation.
That's Krzysztof. So I'm Ukrainian with a Polish last name, so that's
Okay.
where all that comes.
Okay, well, great. Thanks for being with us here today. What else would you like for us to know about the project?
I mean, we're just looking for a little bit of assistance. I have also Dmitry, he's the owner of, what? He's
Hi there. He's the owner of,
all those businesses. I'm more or less a coordinator for those businesses.
okay,
So we're trying to grow, and we recently outgrew our space that we've been renting from Beckenham Properties on West Avenue. So about 2 years ago, there was a property available up for sales on Deep Rock, what used to be a former young blood facility. So it's where we moved our kind of like a maintenance unit, so we converted that building, remodeled it. I mean, back then, we didn't know much about the COMIDA and everything else, so we invested a lot of our own money into the building to convert it into a little bit office space and into like a diesel equipment repair shop. So now we're looking to build, there was adjacent property available out for sale. We bought it about 1.5 acres. There's another property was available for sale about 0.3 acres. We bought it, and we would like to build 35,000 square feet warehouse there. So 30,000 warehouse space and about 5,000 of office space, 8 loading docks. Currently, we formed the Ridex Logistics, so Dmitry owns a company which is Global Way. It operates, transports a freight from the Northeast to California and back. And the Global Way practically does all the local deliveries, so we're trying to subdivide it, to separate it, because it's a very involved process, transporting all the goods and warehousing it. So Ridex Logistics, it's a new company that's been starting off. Global Way obviously going to be a primary client, but there's also, we're talking to a couple of other companies that are in the same business, so we'll be expanding, and Ridex Logistics is going to be taking care of doing last mile deliveries for big loads. It's not going to be, we're not going to be Amazon to
do last mile deliveries, but for tractor, trailer, full load. So looking to build a property, move our operation from a rental place to our own. Anticipating probably, as of right now, we're gonna be occupying about close to 70%. And we try to keep the rest of it for our future growth, and pretty confident that in 3 to 5 years, we're gonna occupy the entire property and we'll create more. Our estimate is more conservative, but pretty sure we're confident we're gonna create more jobs with that.
And do you have requirements for 3 new full-time
Correct.
equivalent? And that, this, all this construction starts when?
We actually, this morning, we're waiting on foundation drawings and some engineering details. So as soon as everything's set in place, we'll start. We would like to start last month, but due to some, how would I say, logistical difficulties due to design, because sprinkler systems, and I mean, it's not an easy place to build because we have a lot of restrictions, and it's a small land, piece of land that we're trying to develop, but everything figured out probably next month or so. BIG, which is a local company, Building Innovation Group is our primary contractor that we're using, so they're guiding us through the process. They all using local labor, local company, local engineers. We try to stay very local.
Great, great. Any questions by the board on this?
Ridex is a startup, correct?
It's a startup, but since we've been heavily involved, Mitch's been involved in that business since 2013 when he started the company. We have a very good knowledge of transportation industry, so it's kind of continuation of the growth of that. Yeah. So it's a startup, but with a very good human resources leading that company.
Any other questions?
What type of products do you transport?
Anything that can fit in a dry van, which is a dry trailer. So anything from parts to consumer goods to electronics, food sometimes, general freight.
Are there any other questions by the board? Okay, thank you. There was a public hearing on May 11th. Any comments on that hearing? I'll ask you. Our local labor questions?
Sure.
Are you aware of our local labor policy?
Yes.
And do you anticipate any local labor exemptions at this time? Got the answers before I can say the question. Are you aware that any exemptions need to be requested 45 days in advance?
Yes.
Okay, great. The seeker process is complete, and now I'll ask for a motion for inducement and final resolution approving a real property tax abatement, mortgage, recording tax, and sales tax exemptions.
So moved.
Been moved by Jay, seconded by Lisa. Any other comments, questions? Okay, I'll take a roll call vote. Jay?
Yes.
Norm?
Yes.
Troy?
Yeah.
Rhett?
Yay.
Lisa?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
And Ann is a yay, so another unanimous. Congratulations. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next project on the agenda is Pittsford Canal Side Properties LLC. Anna, would you like to give us the summary of that?
Thank you, Ann. Pittsford Canalside Properties LLC, a real estate holding company, plans to construct a mixed-use development on 7.5 acres in the village of Pittsford. The development will include a 156-unit apartment complex, clubhouse, and restaurant facility along the Erie Canal. The apartments will range from $1,300 for a studio up to $3,200 for a 3-bedroom unit. 10% of the new units will be income restricted for qualifying households making 60% or less of the Rochester, New York Metropolitan Statistical Area median household income. The site was part of the New York State Brownfield program and was successfully remediated, including the removal of over 90,000 tons of soil. This site will feature public benefits and amenities, including new public access points to the canal, sidewalks, gazebos, benches, landscaping, and docks. The on-site restaurant will create 17 FTEs, and the apartment complex will create 7 FTEs. The $53 million project is seeking a real property tax abatement, mortgage recording tax, and sales tax exemptions, and the benefit to incentive ratio is 8-1.
Thanks, Anna. So we have Chris DeMarzo and Tim Reedy with us today. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for spending the time with us and considering our application. Thank you to Anna and her team who have worked with us for the last few weeks, putting it all together. I don't know how much time you want, but I just wanted to kind of give an overview for
That's
5
fine.
minutes or so and then answer any questions. And stop me if I go too far. My name is Chris DeMarzo. I'm one of the owners of Pittsburgh Canalside Properties and Mark IV Enterprises. I have with me Tim Reedy, he's our Chief Financial Officer, Chris Nadler, our Corporate Counsel, and my brother Steve DeMarzo, also one of the owners of our company. Mark IV is locally owned business. My father started it over 60 years ago. Some of your fathers that we've worked with over the time. We perform property development, construction, and property management. We currently employ 170 people. Just so that you're familiar with the site, this is a 7-acre site coming from the town of Pittsburgh over the Erie Canal into the village of Pittsburgh. Westport Crossing has been a very challenging municipal project. It's taken me 16 years to get through all these approvals. We went through over 180 public hearings and 13 lawsuits to get where we are. Over that period of time, we received rezoning, seeker approval, special permits, final site plan, local waterfront revitalization, a certificate of appropriateness. Very complex, and some of those we did more than once. In 2013 and 15, we undertook the brownfield cleanup program. The site was contaminated. This is a picture from 1985 of the oil refinery that was on the site. This is the entire site. The federal government came in, cleaned up the tanks, but they left all the oil on the site. And so in 2013 and 15, my company volunteered to clean it up. We thought we were ready to build at that time. It obviously took some more time, but we remediated 90,000 tons of soil off the site to an improved site. Tim will talk about the finances. I know some of you may have questions on that. We received a certificate of completion and the site's clean to build for residential. Anna touched on what we're proposing. This is 156 units, 7 acres, 2- and 3-story buildings that we use the historical precedents from canal industrial architecture and elements of architecture from the village itself. Just to touch on the architecture for a second. Here's some barns in Pittsburgh at Shane Place, and you can see some of the architecture. It's not only the architecture, but actually the steel materials, the cupolas, things like that. In terms of the canal, we use historical precedents along the canal on these industrial buildings to make simple, clean looking industrial, yet residential architecture. Very complicated working with the village, but I think it's going to be gorgeous when it's done, and very special. Again, this will have a clubhouse, a swimming pool, boat docks that will be open to the public bathrooms in that area, open to the public, promenade along the canal, fitness center, sidewalk network, all that open to the public. So how does this tie in? We're creating jobs. During construction, we expect 75 to 100 daily workforce over a few year period. When the project is complete, we expect 24 full-time employees, 17 in the restaurant, in the front of the house, the back of the house, support service. For the apartments, there'll be managers, mechanics, exterior or maintenance personnel, and administrative personnel. 24 full-time employees. How does this fit in? The Jobs Plus criteria has a few things. One, project has to have a large increase in assessment due to construction. Currently, on this vacant site, we're paying $12,000 in taxes. When this is completed, it will be over $1 million a year in taxes. Not that I want to pay it, but that's what it will be. Significant rehabilitation of a vacant site on a blighted site, yes, this is a perfect example of that. Creates jobs, yes, 24 full-time jobs when complete. Local labor, yes, all local labor. Not only during construction, but as I mentioned earlier, my firm not only builds, but when we're done, we end up owning and managing the property. So that local labor will stay in this area over a long period of time, and we build and we hold. The need for COMIDA. We will not build this project without this COMIDA, this Jobs Plus pilot. It doesn't work. About 10 years ago, we talked with the previous administration on this, and it just took so long to get where we are. We're back here again. But this project is very complicated and very expensive. The keys that are making the cost even more is that we've put public infrastructure in at our cost. We're paying for it. Things like the docks. It's a new point of access to the Erie Canal with ADA accessible ramps and public bathrooms. And then, as part of the project, we agreed with the village to do off-site amenities for the public. We're going to build a landscaped median on Monroe Avenue that will slow traffic down coming into the village. That's something that they've wanted for a long period of time. On the adjacent street, Sutherland Street, we're going to be rebuilding the entire water main system, not only for our use, but that will increase the water calculations for that whole area, which they need.
That's the street that's by the high school?
Exactly right. That's correct.
From the canal, main road.
Do you have a value
I see.
associated with that water main work?
Do we have a what?
Value, cost.
I do, not offhand.
On page 125 in the packet, it's $530,000. And the traffic calming enhancements are at $750,000.
The other reasons that we need COMIDA is just the cost of funds for financing has gone way up. Cost of materials and inflation has gone way up. And the detailed architectural detail finish is just very expensive to build. I'm gonna have Tim just talk about the finances just for a second, and then I'll wrap it up. I'm happy to
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
As Chris mentioned, my name is Tim Reedy, and I'm the CFO for Hardcore Enterprises. I've been in the Rochester real estate market now for approximately 35 years. And there's just a couple of things I want to review with you today. One is the need for COMIDA, why we need COMIDA to make this project work. And the second is, I want to give you kind of an overview of the brownfield credit, what it consists of, and how it works. Simply put, we are unable to obtain adequate financing without the support of COMIDA. We took this package out to a number of banks, both local and national. And the way that the banks look at how much they're going to loan a project, they basically look at what is the income this project's going to generate once it's fully operational, And what they do is they calculate loan payments back that represent 80% of the income you're gonna generate. And it's a mathematical formula, so it calculates how much loan dollars are willing to loan on a particular project. So in this case, without COMIDA, that loan amount represents 58% of the construction costs of this project. Now, normal residential projects in Rochester receive 85 to 90% loan to cost. This one's at 58. And when I say 58% of the cost of the project, I mean 58% of the future cost of the project, the 53 million. Has nothing to do with the brownfield money that's been spent. That's over on the side, and I'll talk about that in a second. So at 58% of the total cost, this makes this project, we can't get it off the ground, we can't move forward with those numbers. And I don't think any developer would move this project forward with those numbers. So when you take a look at what COMIDA does for us, okay, the biggest benefit from COMIDA for us is really the tax abatement, temporary tax abatement. The temporary tax abatement, it increases, obviously will increase our income on the project. That increase in income doesn't go to the developer so they can make a higher return on their investment. That increase in the income is used so the bank can loan more money. So with the COMIDA support, we're actually able to move that loan amount from 58% of the cost of this project up to 75%. It's still short of the 85 to 90 we would normally get, but at 75%, it is doable, and we would move forward with this project. The brownfield, okay, we had spent $5.2 million to clean up the brownfield. And the way the brownfield works, we went to New York State, we received the brownfield designation. That brownfield designation expires in 2026, which means we have until that expiration date to submit for any type of credits. There's two types of credits in a brownfield. There's a 10% credit for the actual cleanup costs themselves. And then there's another 10% credit for certain qualifying construction costs for the buildings themselves. The caveat there is you have to have a certificate of occupancy on those buildings in order to submit for that second credit. We, in 2016, we submitted for that first piece of the credit, which is the cleanup. We sent it into New York State. New York State came back. They audited the numbers. They agreed. We spent $5.2 million on that cleanup, and they gave us a check for $520,000, that 10%. Now that second piece, we feel that if we got started immediately, we could complete buildings 1, 2, and 3, have C of Os for those buildings prior to the expiration of this 2026 date. If we're able to do that, the brownfield credit on that piece of it would be $1.1 to $1.2 million. So we would be looking at receiving $500,000 back in 2016, and possibly another 1.1 or 1.2 million. That would be a total of 1.7 million roughly. We've spent $5.2 million on it. That means we're short 3.5 million, which is basically coming out of Chris and Steve DeMarzo's pocket. That, in case you're wondering, we did go to New York State to see if we could extend that 2026 deadline, because we can only get so many buildings up by that time, and it's a hard no. So that credit that we're going to apply for buildings 1, 2, and 3 will be our last credit related to this brownfield. I hope that helps.
What if the program's extended?
Excuse me?
What if the program's extended?
We've already asked New York State that they're not gonna extend the 10-year deadline that we had at 2026. We already looked into that. No extensions. There's no benefit for them to extend it. The site's already cleaned up.
But the program is what expires in '26, correct?
No, it's our particular designation. You have a time period that you have to file with New York State. Once you get that designation as a brownfield, that expires in 2026. The brownfield program could get extended. It's possible it could. But our program, no, our program has a hard end to it.
How many buildings are there?
There's 7.
And the total
And
brownfield.
7 and a restaurant, right? 7 and a restaurant. Yeah.
The total brownfield cleanup then was how much?
$5.2 million.
Okay, it's not 7.1 million.
No,
that
no.
number included other off-site things.
The public benefits.
Correct.
Got it, okay.
So just to wrap up, we think this development is uniquely positioned. There's been no multifamily built in the village of Pittsford in recent history. This mixed-use development will open up a diverse housing option that's not there. Young professionals, empty nesters, seniors, will be an alternate housing type in this area. It's the village lifestyle: walk to restaurants, shops, boat, row on the canal, ride your bike on the towpath. It will be a huge economic multiplier, not only during construction, but thereafter. There's been a lot of hurdles in this development. We're very excited to get started. I'm confident this will be an example, a successful redevelopment, not only for the village and the county, but the county as a whole. I ask for your support and look forward to proceeding.
Any questions from the board? No questions? Okay. We held a public hearing on this project on May 11th, and there were a number of comments.
Yes. So we have received written comments that have been distributed to the board. There were also comments at the public hearing that was recorded. It was live streamed to YouTube, and we have distributed the link to the live stream to the board. And I believe everyone has had an opportunity to view that live stream as well as the written comments, both for and against the project.
Okay.
So can you update us on the outcome the village decided?
Yes, the village board of trustees a couple months ago sent the IDA a support letter. They voted prior to our public hearing on the 11th to rescind that support letter. And I think that the village has gone back and forth a number of times of whether they support or do not support the project and financial assistance.
And I circulated a note on Monday to the board just to remind everyone that we are not, and Rachel, you can perhaps phrase it better than I can, but we're not required to solicit the taxing jurisdiction's expressed support
Correct.
as COMIDA.
Any other questions? Or feedback from the hearing? Sounds like we don't, okay. I'll ask you some local labor questions. Are you aware of our local labor policy?
Yes.
And do you anticipate any local labor exemptions at this time?
The only exemption I can think of at this point is that we'll be using gypcrete on the floors. And so I think we're gonna fall into that same issue that was up in front of you before, that there just aren't people that do that in Rochester. I think that's the only one that we can think of at this time.
Okay, and are you aware that any exemptions need to be requested 45 days in
Yes.
advance? All right. Seeker process is complete. I'll now ask for a motion for inducement and final resolution approving a real property tax abatement, mortgage recording tax, and sales tax exemptions.
So moved.
Been moved by Jay,
Second.
seconded by Norm. Any other comments, questions? All right, I'll take a roll call vote. Jay?
Yes.
Norm?
Yes.
Troy?
Nay.
Rhett?
Nay.
Nay? Lisa?
Nay.
Joe?
No.
And Ann is a yay, so the motion does not carry. Sure.
With all due respect to the nay votes, we can't stress enough this project, the voting down of this COMIDA application is going to result in no project. I know some people think that, the developer, they're going to build it anyway, and I know that was expressed in the public hearing at the village. I can tell you, under no uncertain circumstances, we will not be building this project without this support. And I think it's very short-sighted to give a nay vote.
Is there reasons why? Is there anything part of our application that you see that can be modified to support this in any way?
I don't think we should be having that conversation here.
We can take this offline. We'll respond to Mark IV and the questions that you have, via email in writing. Rachel, is there protocol for kind of follow-up?
It's at the discretion of
Okay.
and the chair, if you'd like to take.
Since the vote has already been taken,
Well, but going forward, if we decided to change something.
to reapply,
Right, I mean,
Yeah.
what are the reasons why, so that we know how to come back at this? Because right now, we're done.
16 years of work and $7,000 spent, that's going in the garbage, literally. We cleaned up the brownfield site, that was dumping contaminated petroleum into the Erie Canal. We volunteered to do that work. I mean, you know, is that not a public benefit? You know, where's the public benefit on the other end? How does that come back to us?
We factored all of those items into consideration as staff in qualifying the project for today's meeting for the vote. And I think I'll confer with our chair, and perhaps we can be in communication with you separately with answers to some of your questions and any follow-up, if that's appropriate at this point. Yeah. I'm sorry.
okay, thank you very much. We have, next item on the agenda is the discussion items from the executive director, and the first one is a very big deal. The Fairlife project that has come to Monroe County is probably one of the largest we've ever seen, right?
Yes,
And
I
we were
think-
one of the biggest cheerleaders of bringing that project.
That's right.
Into the area, so I'll let you about the headlines.
Thank you, Anne. So yes, if the application for this particular project comes before COMIDA and the numbers are what, as they are reflected in the press announcement that was released last week by the governor's office, I think it would indeed be the largest project in COMIDA's history, and certainly one of the largest in Monroe County's recent history. Fairlife is a division of Coca-Cola Corporation. The technology, it's a dairy product that is lactose-free, high in protein, low in sugar, a very popular product. In fact, the technology was developed at Cornell University, which is great, reflective of our food and beverage innovation ecosystem in upstate New York. This was a competitive project with Pennsylvania, and the initial call from the site consultants, the site selector on behalf of Coca-Cola, actually came to our offices in Monroe County Economic Development. We referred them back to Greater Rochester Enterprise as they were embarking on a site search, and it was a long, drawn-out process. But the CEO, in fact, met with the county executive back in February, and we were able to successfully negotiate with, and I shouldn't say we, but essentially New York State, Empire State Development, their strategic business division was able to negotiate with Fairlife, and we successfully got the project. So the discussion item today that does not require board action is some information that was conveyed to us from the governor's office, which is that the $200 million Fast New York capital grant program is going to be leveraged to support some of the infrastructure build-out needs at the selected site at 1900 Tibor Road in Webster. Specifically, RG&E is expending $26.2 million on the purchasing new substations and installing new transmission lines to support the operation. And as part of the competitive negotiation with Fairlife, the state offered 20 million of the Fast New York program, to support that infrastructure build out. And the Fast New York program is specifically for IDAs, economic development organizations, and municipalities in New York State. So it's been proposed that COMIDA act as a clearinghouse or conduit to Avangrid, RG&E, as they build out the necessary infrastructure to the tune of $20 million. And this would be the first awarded Fast New York grant in the state, which is significant, and certainly the largest project. So I'm raising that for discussion and to answer questions. It's all very, we all just found out that we officially won the project last week, so this is all moving kind of fast. The conversations between staff and Empire State Development and ultimately the governor's office and Rochester Gas and Electric, trying to figure out, because this is unprecedented. It would certainly be unprecedented for COMIDA, it's unprecedented for the state. So with that, I'd love to.
Why do we have to be the conduit?
The Fast New York grant
Why
program.
wouldn't they just award that to RG&E?
RG&E is a utility, they're not eligible. Private entities and utilities aren't eligible to receive those grant dollars. So it adds an additional, I think, check and balance to the whole process, and it's reimbursement based. So as RG&E spends funds on the equipment and
Then
the
we release
infrastructure,
the dollars
we
to
would
them?
release the dollars to them to reimburse. This helped us as the state to secure the project in competitive negotiations with, it was Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
That's remarkable.
Do we anticipate they coming to COMIDA for more benefit in the future for construction?
We don't have an application for Fairlay. In fact, to my knowledge, there's, the land is not under contract for purchase yet, so TBD. I think we would expect them for a project of this size and scale to seek benefit from COMIDA. But we'll keep you all informed when and if that happens.
First award in the state, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Should be proud.
Yeah, it is really exciting, and it was a collaborative effort. Our staff put our heads together and put our best foot forward. GRE really facilitated everything with Colliers and with Coca-Cola, and this is, I think, what helped secure the win.
So what's the timetable for our giving them permission?
Are giving
In
them
other words, when
permission.
do we make a decision, COMIDA,
That's
to
a-
accept the 20 million?
So the first step is, and I'm happy to disseminate this to the board. RG&E provided me and Robin with a scope of work document that shows all of the engineered and non-engineered cost estimates and details the pieces of equipment that need to be purchased. And this information has to be provided to New York State in a formal Fast New York grant application. And we would need to receive, I think, an award letter from Empire State Development. And then we would take it to the board and ask for board action to accept the grant.
And just roughly what time frame would that be? That you
I think
come
it
to the board?
may be,
Will before our next meeting, will we need a special meeting?
it would perhaps be at our next meeting. I understand Empire State Development, their board meets on June, I think it's prior to our June meeting, and would make a determination at that juncture. And then, depending on the outcome, we would bring forth.
So what hooks are in place once there's a commitment with RG&E to do infrastructure? Is the well, let's say the business eligible to pull out? Or is there gonna be a commitment that they will be having to continue the project? You see what I'm doing? If RG&E
Yeah.
enacts that they're gonna start doing infrastructure, can this customer or the applicant pull away, pull out and say, no, we're not gonna do this?
As far as I understand, Fairlife has already provided, they've cut some checks to RG&E so that RG&E could put purchase orders in for some of the equipment. So they have skin in the game right now. I don't have, that's not something that we have control over, that, you know, the negotiation between the company and the taxing jurisdiction and the utility. But I understand after our meeting with RG&E yesterday that they have entered into a contract with Fairlife for purchase of some limited scope of this larger objective. So but once, that's why I noted, you know, they haven't purchased the land yet. It's all still in motion, moving fast, but there are many uncertainties here.
What
So-
percent of the total job cost is the 20 million?
The total, so the total CapEx for the project is estimated at $650 million, and the total job creation is projected at 250 FTEs.
Yeah,
And
but this is, my concern is and I guess looking at it, it's getting site ready, right, for utility upgrades and that it just seems like the state might have the carriage in front of the horse here with no purchase of land and going forward. I'm confused a little bit on how that's gonna be our deciding to release the money with no full commitment. I'm a little concerned on the design of this and the way it's gonna lay out.
ultimately, the objective of the Fast New York grant program is to develop shovel-ready sites. So right now, the objective would be to shore up the
Right.
utility readiness of 1900 Tibor Road. But yes, tied to that is this end goal of clinching encouraging Fairlife to build on the land, which, as far as I understand, they are planning on doing that, otherwise the governor's office wouldn't have made the announcement. I don't think that we would, get involved if we sensed any additional uncertainties. This is unprecedented. There's not been any such instance in the state where a transaction like this has been proposed.
No, and I
or-
think that, and the state's been very clear in the conversations that the improvements are benefiting Tibor Road. Whether this project happens or not, which everyone hopes very much it's going to, this infrastructure improvement is needed to get these particular parcels along Tibor Road shovel-ready anyway. So while it would be terrible to see this opportunity go by, these sites will be shovel-ready.
Well, the major concern here with a project this size and the amount of money starting to be discussed to incentivize the project, labor hasn't been included in any of these conversations with an end date of October 2025, turn the key over and we start producing. There was no conversation, and now we have all these mega projects coming our way. It is crucial if we as a board start to look to incentivize this project, that we put up a barrier to protect local labor. If we haven't learned our lesson at Amazon and at Li-Cycle, a project labor agreement with this kind of money needs to be put in place so we can eliminate some of our issues with manning jobs. This is gonna be a problem to man, I'm gonna be honest, and then we're having a problem nationwide with manning construction projects. I would just hate to say that we're gonna invest into a hope without full commitment on working with Rochester, local folks, local contractors. I'm very concerned from the chatter that I'm hearing that we might not be, with no conversation prior to an announcement of a $650 million project with an open end date of October 25, very concerning.
So which
Very
union
concerning.
represents RG&E?
I don't think that, it depends what.
RG&E does employ, does employ union shops for some,
So that's
for certain
labor.
positions.
That's
That's separate.
We're talking about the
I think,
project.
so Troy, you raise an excellent point. That's a big conversation. The county executive has been contacted and has been engaged in discussions with representatives from the local labor community. All parties that were involved in the negotiations around this project were under a non-disclosure agreement. So up until that press release went out, nobody knew what the outcome was going to be, and we certainly couldn't talk publicly about who we were communicating with about this project opportunity. So now the conversations are happening in earnest with local labor. We understand with historic projects underway in central New York and western New York in the greater Finger Lakes region. You've got the Bills Stadium underway. We've got the zoo improvements getting underway. That there will be challenges around local labor, similar to what we've experienced with Li-Cycle, and we'll be at the table with local labor to.
This is a perfect opportunity for Rochester to be an incubator for workforce development that goes hand in hand with economic development. We can't develop and construct without the workers to do so. The stadium in Buffalo isn't slated to go full on here in 2025. Micron 2026, 2027. With a project this size, with the amount of incentive, Rochester should be looked at an incubator for building construction workers. The only way we can do that is to put a project labor agreement on it and get the local contractors and workforce to grow. I was in a conversation yesterday. Our barrels are dry powdered loaded for people to come on board. We haven't had the trigger pulled, and this last development with losing work down in the southern states at Li-Cycle and the $14 million package is a perfect example why we gotta do better to make sure it stays local. And to get in front of this now is crucial. I think we have an awesome opportunity to build our workforce to help our sister cities and with everything that's in place. So.
Specifically, the county executive's talking to me about building out some program related to apprenticeships, and I know Robin sent around a doodle poll for the governance committee meeting. We want to talk about this at governance, as well as a number of other things, but
You're saying above and beyond the existing apprenticeship programs that have been
Yes.
in existence for 100 and 130
yes,
years?
yes, actually paying apprentices, because apparently some of the challenge from contractors is,
That seems a little frustrating.
this is all still in play, so I think we should continue to have conversations and determine a next step when we receive an
The
application.
mechanisms to
from
bring in
Fairway.
apprentices have been in place, are in place. We need to utilize them, and we're not.
Thank you for
Thank you
your
for
feedback.
letting me.
Rhett?
I have a question, I don't know, for Troy or for somebody else. So if there was I like the idea of a project labor agreement. It's kind of similar to what this board does for projects. Who would do that? Who would come up with a project labor agreement?
That
Would
would
that
be
be-
between the site owners and developers and the local labor community.
We
COMIDA has no
wouldn't
role.
participate
We don't do
in
that.
PLA
That's not our role.
conversations.
Project labor agreement, REC, could be signed by the governor, and
Right.
as it was done at the airport, local community and local contractors were told when that airport renovation, you will have a project labor agreement. What's frustrating is we've seen project labor agreements everywhere in New York State. In Rochester, in a private world, other than at a hospital, we struggle to get private PLAs. And it's disheartening to watch what's happening. We have an opportunity. I talked about this during Amazon, how MAP could have gotten directly involved in the Amazon project. Li-Cycle, let's not give them an umbrella waiver, let's let them go through the process. I don't understand. At Li-Cycle, we have 38 out-of-state workers making $3,200 a week. Why is an out-of-state contractor capable of paying their workers $3,200 a week when a mason in town makes about $1,200. There's a relationship that these contractors bring to the table and to the project site. And this developer that we're talking about out here in Webster was in our backyard in Batavia about 12 years ago. And they did bring in a whole crew from Wisconsin.
I
And
don't know what you're talking about and how that pertains to
so,
Fairlife.
well, the general contractor that's working with Fairlife right now is a familiar face, let's
Okay.
just say.
We don't have any relationships with the general contractor, and there's no project application.
Joe.
I think that
think
it's
we,
a little preliminary to have a lot of
we
these
need to go
conversations.
to
We do not have an
governance with
application.
this.
We
with
don't
these
have an
questions.
application, it's
Yeah.
just our
I
discussion
agree.
item.
What I asked Rachel was, so if we're used as a conduit, they don't have to follow our local labor,
Right. State money.
because it's not our dough. They can use us as a pass-through, and they don't have to meet our local labor requirements, correct?
And recall.
That's
That's a
what
Rachel
I'm-
question,
Yes,
is
Yeah, that's what I
RG&E
asked,
performing
right.
the work?
And recall,
Mm-hmm.
this Fast New York money is not being provided to any particular project on Tibor Road. It's going to improve these sites and infrastructure on Tibor Road. So there is no, it's going from the state to COMIDA to RG&E. So there is no real, everyone on Tibor Road
But
is
why does
going
it
to
have to be
benefit.
I
tied,
understand.
why does it have to be tied to a project if labor from anywhere has to be involved with the upgrades? We should be able to do something about, or at the
It's
state level.
RG&E's labor, not our labor, not, or private, it's RG&E. whatever
And
they
that's
do.
why I asked Rachel, because I'm thinking, and I'm just thinking out loud, I'm thinking if they wanted to use us as a pass-through and they had to meet our local labor requirements, then that's easy. Then we let them use us as a pass-through, meet local labor, and away we go. But if they don't, then it's, well, that's different. So I see what you're saying.
So
I don't understand the
No,
concern about.
because remember, these are state funds, they have their own requirements. The program is set up so that IDAs and other similar entities can apply. Here, there is no, who is the "they" that we would be imposing local labor on?
Exactly.
RG&E, New York State.
No, we don't
RG&E
have a
RG&E is gonna use their labor for our site, we have no control over that.
Yeah, but if
So
New York
so
State
RG&E
is,
does it themselves? I'm sorry, Red, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
It's
So
okay.
RG&E will
Yes.
do the upgrades themselves?
Yes.
So the state pays the money, right? The money
The
comes
state
from
will
the
be
state.
paying 20 million of the $26.2 million worth of upgrades.
Okay.
Fairlife is paying for the remaining 6.2 million.
And then RG&E takes their people and they do the upgrades
Yes,
themselves?
yes.
I see.
And we'll
Okay.
be happy when the time is appropriate
Okay.
and when we have in hand perhaps an
More
offer letter from
information,
ESD.
right.
We'll be happy to bring in Joe Rizzo from RG&E Economic
Okay.
Development to talk about their local labor
So,
force.
so that
how
makes more
these-
sense. That makes
Yes.
more,
So-
see, I
so
didn't
yes.
understand that, so that makes
Yes.
more sense. Okay.
So it's just a conduit, and what we're gonna have at the end of the day, if Fairlife doesn't materialize, we'll have an improvement on that road. We'll have capacity there.
Right, so it will be ready for the next big project,
So,
hopefully.
you know, Troy, I hear what you're saying about PLAs, working with different entities for workforce development. People have to come to the table and set aside their different points of views and work together for a common goal. There's people that want to do workforce development. There's people that want to participate in apprenticeship programs. I like to see people of color in these programs. But I'm going to tell you, there's not many of us there. So if you want to have that, you want to have that discussion, you want it to be really meaningful, you want to have impact, you have to come there with a clear objective and say, guess what? We want to develop a system for local labor where they're going to be given opportunities regardless of where you're from, and everybody has a chance at it. Because that's what happens. I know about the apprenticeship programs because I've watched them. My brother, apprenticeship, electrician, he's been through it. So if you want it to work and be effective, You gotta do a little housekeeping, and guess what, and say, this is what we have to do to make sure that everybody is welcome at the table.
The only thing that makes an apprenticeship program successful is guaranteed jobs.
No, no, Troy, people working on that job, you gotta let them feel like they're welcome on that job.
But you can't train and have people come in without a job, because you're gonna lose them. Once you train them, you gotta get them, you gotta get that conduit right
Okay,
to work.
I would just
In order to
say-
do that, it's a project.
I would just say, I think we've had a very healthy conversation
Yes.
and discussion. And once there is more information, we can run it through governance, and there'll be a process.
Yeah.
The positive piece of all of this, the big headline, is that this was a hotly competitive project with Coca-Cola Corporation, which has never really done
Other
a deal
states.
of like this in New York.
Right.
And our team and GRE and Empire State Development helped us put a competitive proposal together, and now the state is asking that COMIDA play a role in helping to facilitate their commitment to the negotiation. And it would be a first of its kind transaction or award in New York State. And I'm frankly proud of the case that we set forth
Absolutely.
to win the project. I think it's really strong economic development. It's real industrial economic development. And it also supports the dairy farming shed throughout all of upstate New York, and I think it will have broader industrial impacts in our supply chain as well.
Okay.
Just, never mind. Go on.
One last question. Are you sure? Okay. All right, we will follow up on all of this as the information comes
Yes.
in, right?
Yes.
And we'll run it through our governance committee.
And congratulations to all for their hard work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's
Good job.
It's staff, thank you,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
And you know, it all still is in process, so
And I think
we'll keep you all
education is the key
informed.
for us. So-
Right.
Because like this is totally something new to me, so at least if we understand
Of
what's
course.
being done, who's doing the work, how it happens,
P-TAX.
what the benefit is, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's great.
Yes.
So we've had other pastors.
It's about
Okay.
infrastructure. Lycycle came to
Okay.
Rochester because the infrastructure was in place. One of 5 chemical ready-to-go plants. Lycycle utilized that. Now we have another infrastructure that we're building to entertain somebody to come in. We should be looking at that. We've committed to bring you here. We should be rewarded, a local community should be rewarded for those efforts.
Sure.
That's
Makes sense.
the
Okay.
infrastructure for this dairy plant is water, from what I'm hearing. The access to Lake Ontario and the fresh water.
Got it.
That's a huge part of why they are
And
coming here.
the milk.
Yeah.
Had some
And the
dairy.
dairy,
I got it.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, and the Paris report?
We are very close to hitting submit. It should be, if not by the end of this week, early next. Is that accurate for me to say? Okay. So, many months of hard, tedious work on behalf of Robin, Rachel, and Allison.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Good job.
And then the dashboard.
Guess you guys be
and
very happy.
Thank
headlines
you.
there.
Nothing notable. I
Still
know
not
we're
done
over
yet?
time. If there are any particular questions about,
going out there?
the dashboard, please let me know. We have, the workforce development program is the beginning balance is $2.5 million, and the fund balance year-to-date is $2.7 million, so.
Well, everyone has a copy of the dashboard in the packet, so. All right, Chair Burr has no further discussion items. Our next meeting will be June 20, so at noon, and so I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Joe.
Second.
Seconded by Lisa. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?